part 35.
Now this morning we're going to continue our teachings on call to be a champion. And we have been looking at 47 biblical facts about words. Now the last time we were here, I told you that right words bring health and healing. Look at Proverbs chapter 12 verse 18 please. Proverbs 12:18. There is that speaketh like the piercings of a sword, but the tongue of the wise is health. Now, when you choose the words you speak, right words, words filled with the wisdom of God, promote health and healing. Wrong words have the exact opposite effect on a man. Now, when you read Psalm 38, 39 and 40, you will see David talking about some peculiar sickness that afflicted him in Psalm 38. He speaks about how, in verse 7, for my loins are filled with a loathsome disease, and there is no soundness in my flesh. Some people say he was afflicted with venereal disease. Nobody knows exactly what the disease was. But then you find that David used words to come out of this mess. He used right words to come out of this problem. Look at what he says in verse 22. Make haste to help me, O Lord, my salvation. The word salvation, I've already told you, has a twofold application. One is not only saving from sins, but it also has to do with healing of physical bodies. So he calls God his source. He calls God the one who's deliverer. Now he is using words to come out of a mess which he didn't have an answer to in the natural realm. Now, if you read Psalm 39, look at verse 1 please. He says, I said I will take heed to my ways, that I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle, while the wicked is before me. That means there's so much of pressure put on the tongue to speak something wrong. I was dumb with silence. I held my peace, even from good, and my sorrow was stirred. My heart was hot within me, while I was musing with fire. While I was musing, the fire burned. Then spake I with my tongue. Now, while the pressure was on, he kept silent. But then at one point of time, he looks to God and asks God to teach him something. Now, he keeps speaking his prayer. And then in verse 12, the Bible says, hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear unto my cry. Hold not thy peace at my tears. For I am a stranger with thee and a sojourner, as all my fathers were. O spare me, that I may recover strength before I go hence and be no more. Now, what's David talking about? David saying, I don't want to die sick. I want to be healed. I want to be good. And when the time comes for me to go, I want to go. You look at the life of David, you find that's what happened to David. David didn't die of sickness. David even didn't die of the sword. David lived out his years and he died as a grand old man at the right time. Now, Psalm 40 again. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he inclined unto me and heard my cry. He brought me up also out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. And he hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many shall see it and fear and shall trust in the Lord. Now this is the same man who was speaking a little earlier about the venereal disease. This is the same man who's speaking. He's speaking about something which is so real. Till now he's been suffering, but now he's speaking it out loudly. Now, this is something that we need to pay attention to. This is something that we must be keeping in our minds closely. Look at the God we serve. He is not a God of sickness. He is not a God of disease. He is a God of healing and health. And He is the one who puts us back. Now, how do we do it? By speaking the right word. We speak the word of faith. We speak the word of truth. Now, keep reading, please. Verse 40. Many, O Lord my God, are thy wonderful works which thou hast done, and thy thoughts which are to usward. They cannot be reckoned up in order unto thee. If I would declare and speak of them, they are more than can be numbered. Sacrifice and offering thou didst not desire. Mine ears hast thou opened. Burnt offering and sin offering hast thou not required. Then said I, Lo, I come. In the volume of thy book it is written of me, I delight to do thy will, O my God. Thy law is within my heart. I have preached righteousness in the great congregation. Lo, I have not refrained my lips, O Lord, thou knowest. I have not hid thy righteousness within my heart. I have declared thy faithfulness and thy salvation. I have not concealed thy loving kindness and thy truth from the great congregation. Now continually you see him speaking words that promote health and healing. So right words bring health and healing. Now the 30th fact about words is this. The wise avoid the presence of those who consistently speak wrong words. The wise avoid the presence of those who consistently speak wrong words. Come with me to Proverbs chapter 14, please. Proverbs chapter 14 and look at verse 7, please. Go forth from the presence of a foolish man when thou perceivest not in him the lips of knowledge. Go forth from the presence of a foolish man. Now, is this practically possible is the question, because sometimes you see people speaking wrong all the time. And I'd like you to come with me to 1 Samuel chapter 17, please. 1 Samuel chapter 17. And I'd like you to look at what David did when he was accused falsely by Eliab, his eldest brother. 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verse 28. And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why camest thou down hither? Now I want you to highlight that verse, please. Now David didn't just come because he felt like coming. Why did David come? David came because David was sent by his father to meet his brothers. Now that's the most important thing. Foolish people will never see why or the purpose behind your action or the purpose behind your speech. All that they will see is only what they choose to see. Now follow carefully. Why camest thou down hither? Now he had known clearly that his father Jesse had sent him. He had sent him with cheese in his hands. He had sent him to meet his boss as well as to inquire about their health. Follow. And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? Now this boy Eliab didn't consider that the sheep that David had led in the wilderness was already taken care of. By who? By a keeper that we read of in verse 20. Remember, David had got up early in the morning. He had gone and found a keeper. Now he was not a man who had just shirked his responsibility and come to the battlefront. He had not come there like that. But look at the accusation. Look at the slander. This is slander. When words are flung at people, it becomes slander when they don't seem to understand what's happening. Follow. I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart. For thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. Remember, David did not even know what was happening. Nobody knew that Goliath had petrified Israel for 40 days and 40 nights. Only God knew. And God was sending the deliverer. And I want you to say amen to that. God was sending his deliverer. God was sending his deliverer to deliver not the household of Jesse alone, but an entire nation. And the first word was slander. From whom? His eldest brother. Listen. And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? Is there not a cause for my speech? Now, who was David lifting up is the question. Was he lifting himself up? No. All that David was doing was lifting up the God of Israel. But he was attacked, he was slandered, and it was foolish talk. Now look at what David did. And he turned from him towards another. He moved away. He would not let foolish talk put him down. And spake after the same manner. He didn't quit speaking. He continued to speak the same way. Meaning he didn't change the manner of speech to please a foolish man's talk. Why do we say Eliab was foolish? Because he didn't see God behind it. He didn't see God. All that he saw was his brother. He didn't see the deliverance that God was planning through this young boy. So I want you to highlight it, please, in your Bible. And the people answered him again after the former manner. Now, let's move to the 31st fact about words. Only the simple and fools believe everything others say. Please write it down. Only the simple and fools believe everything others say. Proverbs chapter 14. And look at verse 15, please. The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. Remember, we were talking about the facts about words. Now, the simple believeth every word. Now, the book of Proverbs has an example of a simpleton who believed the words of a prostitute in Proverbs chapter 7, verses 5 to 27. I'd like you to turn with me to Proverbs chapter 7, verses 5 to 27. Now say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman, that they may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement, and beheld among the simple ones. I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner. And he went the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. When behold, there met him a woman with the attire of a harlot and subtle of heart. Now the strange woman is a stranger to God. She is a harlot, she is a prostitute. And how she is like is explained in chapter 7 for us. She is loud and stubborn. Her feet abide not in her house. Now is she without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner. That means all that she is out for is, it's a business proposition. It doesn't go beyond that. So she caught him and kissed him, and with an impudent face said unto him, I have peace offerings with me. This day have I paid my vows. Therefore came I forth to meet thee, diligently to seek thy face, and I have found thee. Now here she is portraying herself as someone who was only waiting for him. But that's not true. She was waiting for anybody who would come along. She was not just waiting for him. She didn't even care for him. It was on this particular day that this man walked through her house, came by her corner, and she saw him. And she grabbed him. Now, keep reading, please. I have decked my bed with coverings of tapestry, with carved works, with fine linen of Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, and let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with loves. Now follow, in this woman there's no fear of God. All that she is bothered about is to have a go with this man and to get what he has, money. Now keep reading. For the good man is not at home, he is gone a long journey, he had taken a bag of money with him and will come home at the day appointed. With her much fair speech she caused him to yield, with the flattering of her lips she forced him. He goeth after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, till a dart strike through his liver, as a bird hasted to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. Hearken unto me now therefore, O ye children, and attend to the words of my mouth. Let not thine heart decline to her ways, go not astray in her paths. I want you to highlight the word her paths. Her path is not a path of peace, it's a path of destruction. Her path is not really a path of love, her path is a path of lust. Completely a different path. Now keep reading. For she hath cast down many wounded, many strong men have been slain by her. So this is not the first man. She's been at it throughout. It's her business. For her, it's her business. Her house is the way to hell, not to heaven, going down to the chambers of death. So only the simple and fools believe everything others say, especially a stranger. The 32nd fact about words, please. Right words give you access to powerful and important people. Right words give you access to powerful and important people. Come with me to Proverbs chapter 16, please. Proverbs 16 and verse 13. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. Righteous lips, truthful and fair lips, are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. Whether you look at the life of Joseph, or whether you read the book of Daniel, or you study the life of David, you will find in every instance it was right words that brought them before kings. By themselves, they were ordinary men. But what set them apart were the words they spoke. The words they spoke brought them before kings. Look at their backgrounds. Joseph was sold into slavery by his own family, his brothers. What about Daniel? Remember what I taught you in Daniel when we were studying the book of Daniel. Daniel was just a captive. A young man made a eunuch to serve in a strange palace. What a trauma. And in the palace of one of the most profound men of all times, the first world ruler, no standing whatsoever. But every word Daniel spoke brought him to stand before Nebuchadnezzar finally. That's the amazing thing. Look at the life of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. The words they spoke attracted the attention of Nebuchadnezzar. What about David? David was just a young little boy looking after sheep in the wilderness. The lion came, the bear came, and each time David went after the lion, went after the bear, because it was his father's sheep. But the words David spoke, which finally brought him before King Saul, are the words of a man who had learned that right speech is important from a young age. Because if you speak wrong words, you will not stand before kings. Look at Proverbs chapter 16 verse 13 again. Righteous lips are the delight of kings, and they love him that speaketh right. When you speak right, people will love you. You will have divine favor. People in authority will recognize you. I want to give you an example from 2 Samuel, please. 2 Samuel chapter 19. Now after David's return from running before Absalom, he is met by a man who had come earlier to help him, called Barzillai. I want you to come with me to 2 Samuel chapter 19 verse 31 onwards, which we'll be reading. And I want to show you how right words will get a man into a place of divine favor. And Barzillai the Gileadite came down from Rogelim and went over Jordan with the king to conduct him over Jordan. Now Barzillai was a very aged man, even 80 years old. That's 80. And he had provided the king of sustenance while he lay at Mahanaim, for he was a very great man. And the king said unto Barzillai, Come thou over with me, and I will feed thee with me in Jerusalem. Now follow carefully. Here was a man who sustained David, and David is returning the favor. He's about to cross the Jordan. This aged man, about 80 years old, did not project age. He said, no, I'm going to come and see you over the Jordan because I am for you. So David looks at him and says, why don't you come home with me? Stay with me in the palace. Eat with me. Now look at the reply of Barzillai. And Barzillai said unto the king, How long have I to live that I should go up with the king unto Jerusalem? I am this day 80 years old. And can I discern between good and evil? Can thy servant taste what I eat or what I drink? Can I hear any more the voice of singing men and singing women? Wherefore then should thy servant be at a burden unto my lord the king? Thy servant will go a little way over Jordan with the king. And why should the king recompense it me with such a reward? Now follow. Continuously this man Barzillai is addressing David as king, showing fully to David right through the time when Absalom tried to seize power and declare himself king. In my heart there was no one else but you as king. So you don't need to return anything to me as a favor. I am an old man. I may not live long. I can't hear any longer the music that is played in the palace or even enjoy palace food. But follow. Let thy servant, I pray thee, turn back again, that I may die in my own city and be buried by the grave of my father and of my mother. But behold, thy servant Chimham. Now he is recommending his son. He is putting before David his son. Let him go over with my lord the king, and do to him what shall seem good unto thee. The king answered, Chimham shall go over with me, and I will do to him that which shall seem good unto thee. And whatsoever thou shalt require of me, that will I do for thee. It's amazing. He's saying, I heard your request, but I'll still respect you. If this is your son, he will go with me. He will sit in my palace. He will eat at my table. And whatever you have said, I will do to him. Now follow. And all the people went over Jordan, and when the king was come over, the king kissed Barzillai and blessed him, and he returned unto his own place. Then the king went on to Gilgal, and Chimham went on with him. And all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. Isn't it amazing that right words introduces to us the name of a man called Chimham. Till now, nobody knew who was Chimham. No one knew that he was Barzillai's son. Later, you will read of how a place was called Chimham in the scripture. So it's amazing how right words give you access to powerful and important people. Number 33. Number 33. We are looking at biblical facts about words. Wisdom is necessary in order to speak the right words. Wisdom is necessary in order to speak the right words. Come with me to Proverbs chapter 16, please. Proverbs chapter 16. I want you to look at verse 23. The heart of the wise, or the spirit of the wise, teacheth his mouth, and addeth learning to his lips. That means unless you have wisdom, it's hard for you to speak right words. I want to show this to you with an example. Come with me to Acts chapter 6, please. Remember the qualification that was put before the people for the selection and appointing of deacons in the church. Look at verse 3. Wherefore, brethren, look ye out among you 7 men of honest report, full of the Holy Ghost and wisdom, with whom we may appoint over this business. Now, come down a little bit, please. Look at verse 8. And Stephen, full of faith and power, did great wonders and miracles among the people. Then there arose certain of the synagogue, which is called the synagogue of the Libertines, and the Cyrenians, and the Alexandrians, and of them of Cilicia, and of Asia, disputing with Stephen. Now there were people who were resisting Stephen. They didn't like the way he was talking. They didn't like the miracles that were happening. And they were not able to resist the wisdom and the spirit by which he spoke. There was something that set this man apart from the rest. What couldn't they resist? The wisdom and the spirit by which he spoke. So unless you have wisdom, you will not be able to speak right words. Now, there's something that sets apart people who speak like this. And I just want you to make a note of it, please. After the false accusers came, false witnesses, they were raised up, they stood there, they accused Stephen falsely. Look at verse 15. And all that sat in the council looked steadfastly on him, saw his face as it had been the face of an angel. Isn't it amazing that when they looked at this man, they didn't see his face, but they saw the face of an angel in him. Now this is talking about his accusers. And what's terrible is, in the next chapter you see that they went ahead anyhow and did what they had planned to do. But I want to bring your attention this morning to 2 other instances where the same thing is found. That's why when you speak with the wisdom of God, it's as though you are the very oracle of God. It is as though you are the very angel of God speaking. I want to show this to you, because if you'll see it this morning, you will see how clearly God intends for us to walk in a way that is pleasing to Him with our speech. Come with me, please, to 2 Samuel. It's an amazing portion of scripture. I just want you to pay attention to what we have just read from Acts chapter 6. And I want to show this to you from 2 Samuel chapter 14. Now, the background is this. Amnon had been killed by Absalom, but Absalom had still not come and stood before the king. In fact, the Bible tells us that Absalom was living somewhere else. Look at verse 38 of chapter 13. So Absalom fled and went to Jeshurun and was there 3 years. Now while he was there, somehow Joab's heart was towards Absalom. He wanted Absalom back in the place where he ought to be, not living in a strange land. So Joab sent to Tekoa and fetched thence a wise woman and said unto her, I pray thee, feign thyself to be a mourner, And put on now mourning apparel, and anoint not thyself with oil, but be as a woman that had a long time mourned for the dead. And come to the king, and speak on this manner unto him. So Joab put the words in her mouth. So he said, play act. Act like you're a mourning woman. But who did he go and catch? A wise woman. She was known for her wisdom. That's what brought her before King David. Okay, so it ties up with what we have seen earlier. Right words will bring you before people who are in authority. Now, she goes through a particular situation. She keeps talking about something, she says. And the king said unto her, what aileth thee? And she answered, I am indeed a widow woman, and my husband is dead, and thy handmaid had 2 sons. And they 2 strove together in the field, and there was none to part them, but the one smote the other and slew him. And behold, the whole family is risen against thine handmaid. And they said, deliver him that smote his brother, that we may kill him for the life of his brother whom he slew. And we will destroy the heir also, and so they shall quench my coal which is left, and shall not leave to my husband neither name nor remainder upon the earth. Now she is talking about the 2 sons having a fight on the field, and it so happened that one boy killed the other. Now everybody wants to kill the one who's alive. And the king said unto the woman, go to thine house, and I will give charge concerning thee. And the woman of Tekoa said unto the king, my lord, O king, the iniquity be on me and on my father's house. And the king and his throne be guiltless. And the king said, whoever saith aught unto thee, bring him to me, and he shall not touch thee any more. Now she is pushing the king to commit. And he commits. He said, yes, if there's anyone who's wanting to touch your son, the only remaining son that you have, send the man to me. Then said she, I pray thee, let the king remember the Lord thy God, that thou wouldest not suffer the revengers of blood to destroy any more, lest they destroy my son. And he said, as the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair of thy son fall to the earth. Then the woman said, let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak one word unto my lord the king. And he said, say on. Then the woman said, wherefore then hast thou thought such a thing against the people of God? For the king doth speak this thing as one which is faulty, in that the king doth not fetch home again his banished. Now she is saying, you are passing a judgment for me, but why should it be a fault on you when it comes to your own house? You have banished your son, you have not brought him back. Absalom has not come back for 3 years. Sure, he killed Amnon. For we must needs die, and are as water spilt on the ground, which cannot be gathered up. Neither doth God respect any person, yet doth he devise means that is banished be not expelled from him. Highlight that, please. God devises means to bring back the lost to him. Now therefore that I am come to speak this thing unto my lord the king, it is because the people have made me afraid. Now, and thy handmaid said, I will now speak unto the king. It may be that the king will perform the request of his handmaid. For the king will hear to deliver his handmaid out of the hand of the man that would destroy me and my son together out of the inheritance of God. Then thine handmaid said, the word of my lord the king shall now be comfortable. She said, I did all this because I wanted to know what was on your heart. I wanted to know what you would speak. When you said this will be my judgment, now I know I can bring before you the real reason I'm here. Now listen. Now this is the most important thing. For as an angel of God, so is my lord the king to discern good and bad. Now what is the ability to discern good and bad? Wisdom. But there again you see the allusion to an angel brought by this woman, a wise woman. Therefore the Lord thy God will be with thee. What an amazing statement. Now let's move down a little bit. I want to show you again this allusion. 2 Samuel chapter 19. Again I'd like to briefly mention to you the background behind which the incident is, which I'm going to quote to you. 2 Samuel chapter 19. Like I told you earlier, Absalom was killed. David was returning back to his kingdom. But on the way, he was met by Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, in verse 24. Earlier in chapter 16, verses 1 to 4, when the king was on his run, the servant of Mephibosheth approached David in a very deceiving manner. And he made it look to David, Mephibosheth, because he is a descendant of Saul, really doesn't love you. That's the reason why when you're on the run, he is not there to stand with you at this time. Now that was a wrong statement. Mephibosheth was lame. But this is what the servant Ziba said. And the king looked at this man and thought at that point that Ziba was right. So he said, everything that belongs to Mephibosheth, you take it. Now, when the king is returning to his kingdom, somehow Mephibosheth makes his way to find out how the king is. Because remember, he was a lame man. He was not a man who was an active man who could have followed David the way David was moving. Now follow. Verse 24. And Mephibosheth, the son of Saul, came down to meet the king, and had neither dressed his feet, nor trimmed his beard, nor washed his clothes, from the day the king departed until the day he came back again in peace. Now this man was really in mourning. He loved David. He knew that he was living in Lodibar as an outcast. And David had brought him home and given him food and raiment and honor. So when David left the kingdom, this man refused to take, wash his clothes or trim his beard. And he had neither dressed his feet. That means this man was a lame man, and he was just going in the way he could show mourning to people. And it came to pass when he was come to Jerusalem to meet the king, that the king said unto him, Wherefore wentest thou not with me, Mephibosheth? Now the king is angry. He's asking him a question. Why didn't you come? And he answered, My lord, O king, my servant deceived me. For thy servant said, I will saddle me an ass, that I may ride thereon and go to the king, because thy servant is lame. And he had slandered thy servant unto my lord the king. That means he told a lie about me to you. Look at verse 27, the latter half of it. But my lord the king is as an angel of God. Do therefore what is good in thine eyes. For all of my father's house were but dead men before my lord the king. Yet didst thou set thy servant among them that did eat at thine own table. What right therefore have I yet to cry any more unto the king? That means, why should I keep crying again? And the king said unto him, Why speakest thou any more of thy matters? I have said, Thou and Ziba divide the land. Now that's not what he really said earlier. In chapter 16 he had told Ziba, take all that belongs to Mephibosheth. Now, when he knows that he has made a mistake, he speaks equal partitioning. Of course, here you will read of how Mephibosheth says, no, let him take all. I don't want anything. All that I want is you rightfully on the throne in Jerusalem. Finally, pleasant words are the sweetest sounds on earth. Pleasant words are the sweetest sounds on earth. Now this is the 34th fact about words. Proverbs chapter 16, and I want you to look at verse 24. Pleasant words are as a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Now very important. It's sweet to the soul, sweet to the mind, health to thy bones. That means there's a connection between the words you speak and the health you will have. Look at Ezekiel chapter 33, please. Now God himself is acknowledging something to the prophet about how his words have been to the children of Israel, although they didn't choose to really pay much attention to it as the word of the Lord. Look at Ezekiel chapter 33 and verse 32. And thou art unto them as a very lovely song a one that hath a pleasant voice, and can play well on an instrument. For they hear thy words, but they do them not. They're hearing words, but when it comes to doing them, they don't like to do them. Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 26. Proverbs 15 and verse 26. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to the Lord, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. The words of the pure are words of pleasantness. That's how it is in the Hebrew. This morning we are going to close with this place, because in the afternoon we are going to have a water baptism service at 2 o'clock here. But I want you to know that when you put the Lord first and use words that are right, you will see that every one of these things happening in your life. Often people think that words really don't matter. Words matter. Because everything in God's kingdom is based on the word. In fact, the Bible is God's word. I was just reading a small write-up about D.L. Moody yesterday. He was talking about how to study the word of God. And he made a statement in his writing so many years ago. He said a supernatural God must have a supernatural word. No wonder no man can ever fathom the complete height, length, width and depth of God's word fully in his own lifetime. Isn't it amazing that God has so ordained it that everything is based on words? Creation was based on words. Salvation is based on words. Destruction is based on words. Life and death, the power of it is in the tongue, based on words. What we choose, the Bible says, we get. Therefore, this morning, let's bow our heads in prayer, please.
This concludes Pastor Isaac's message.